Anti-government protests have been gaining momentum in Israel, especially since the renewal of military operations in Gaza. Thousands of Israelis, including families of hostages, veterans and left-wing activists, have been taking to the streets over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the war and demand a political solution. Protesters say the government has no clear endgame in Gaza, while the continued bombardment is costing lives of both Palestinians and Israelis, with no path to peace in sight. Well, instead of the typical photos of Israeli hostages, which you see all over Israel, some demonstrators hold up posters of dead Palestinian children. These silent protests are growing exponentially, but have also received backlash. I'm joined now by activist Danielle Cantor, who is a co-organiser of those protests. What's so wrong about what you're doing in the eyes of some Israelis, Danielle?
Hi. I think Israelis kind of view it as treason. I think a lot of the time they're set in this narrative of either or, and are kind of, they have this armor that's protecting them from seeing reality how it is, along with the media blockage of any information of what's going on in Gaza and what the Israeli military and government are perpetuating in Gaza. I think for a while, people kind of have this like armor of whataboutism, armor of victimhood, and this armor of identity politics, keeping them from seeing the full picture. And we kind of, we started this to kind of try and dismantle that and to bring the voice of, to bring our solidarity with the people of Gaza into these protests, into these anti-war, anti-government protests, because, it's empathy is not empathy if it's selective, and there's a people suffering much more, than we are at the moment. Basically, that's what people could be.
What do you do at these protests then, besides standing there silently and holding up these pictures?
So basically, people come in, and Amit, who kind of started this, gives a talk to everyone that's coming, and she tells them to have a look at the photo of the kid that they've gotten on the piece of paper, to read their story, to read their name, to keep them in their hearts while they're standing there silently. She gives us the statistics of the children that have died that week, and in a total since October 7th. She gives us the number of children that we know have been murdered. That is not including the kids that have died from malnutrition, the kids that are missing under rubble, the kids that have not been identified yet, the kids that their parents haven't called to tell the hospital that they've died.
What sort of response do you get from passers-by and from police?
Well, in the beginning, we just started this 2 months ago, but the police came out with this law that you're not allowed to hold photos of Palestinian children in Gaza during protests. And I think there was a lot of public pressure that within, it was like a day or two, I don't remember exactly, that it was taken back. It was backtracked. Mm-hmm. But that's, on the police end, obviously they're not, from my feeling, they're not very happy about it. And passerbys, I think people that pass by, I think because it's within the larger context of the anti-war protests, people, in the beginning when we started, we thought we were going to get, beat up. Like, we did not think it was going to go well. And it actually surprised us how many people asked to join us. And that, we started 10 friends, and now we're almost, it's like between 800 and 1,000 people were last week.
So what would you say, Danielle, changed people's minds, or what sort of change of heart has there been among the Israeli public?
I think reality is catching up with people. I think, is the Israeli media, like I said beforehand, has really not shared any information of what's happening in Gaza, while Israel is targeting journalists in Gaza and killing them. And I think it was between. I think it's become this kind of global consensus that it's not okay to kill children, and it's not okay to kill anyone for that matter. And I think holding these photos during the protests, people can't talk about democracy, like we need democracy or whatever, when they see these photos, and not to mention what's going on in the West Bank, like that we're not a democratic state as long as we're occupying another people. And killing them and not giving them, starving them, not giving them their basic human rights of movement, of electricity, clean water, whatever we should deserve as humans.
Danielle, if I can challenge you, you mentioned just before you started these protests 2 months ago. Why not 600 days ago when the war started?
Well, that is a very fair question. It was very, very scary within Israeli society to resist what was going on, and we're doing a lot of other protests, of course, and we've been mobilizing since the beginning of the war, and then. But it was scary to talk to the Israeli public. You were, being violently chased down, called names. People within your family, it was very confusing in that beginning time to be active. And when we were attacked in one way or another for voicing, humane perspective.
What does it mean today in Israel to say you support coexistence with Palestinians?
I think coexistence, I don't really personally back that word, because I feel it's kind of just like existing next to each other. Whereas I feel like what I would wish for Israelis and Palestinians is to understand that we have a shared destiny, and that we need to all have basic human rights between the river and the sea. We need to all kind of be able to, unpack our pain and understand that it doesn't come at the expense of the other, even though obviously the power dynamic is completely different and the symmetry of it all is very different. I mean, I don't even have to say, you can, what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank compared to, what's happening in Israel, which is, I was just telling you, I shut my window because there's a party outside, outside my house.
Yeah, life goes on, I guess, but it's not all that easy when you're blind to what's going on just a couple of kilometres away. Danielle, Cantor, thank you very much for being on DW News tonight, and great to get your views.
Thank you.